patterns that are used in all microservices. One, if you go into 12-factor auths, the first is the external configuration, where you externalize all the config based on environment. You can use, and then those could be maintained on GitHub, or if you're using Kubernetes, you could also use Kubernetes config maps to do that, right? And then within the Spring Cloud ecosystem, you can use a Spring Cloud bus to dynamically update these properties for beans that are annotated with configuration properties and refresh scope. Then you have service discovery. So part of the problems with distributed system was, how do I know? Because systems could come up, systems could go down. What is an ephemeral way for me, or so that I can just kind of call an endpoint, and it basically forwards me to the correct corresponding service. I don't have to worry about where that is. I don't have to know the physical endpoint, right? So that's kind of where service discovery came into picture, which kind of follows a cloud native architecture to isolate that tight coupling to service. You don't have to know where it's deployed, right? Then similarly, you have circuit breakers. So typically when each services call each other, they might break, right? And this failure kind of cascades, right? So what you really want to do is, if you what you want to do is, like, you have a circuit breaker in your electricity board. When your failure crosses a threshold, that circuit just trips, right? So the circuit breaker says, I'm no longer going to send this request to my end service. I'm going to kind of sending either an error or a default response during a timeout period, right? Once the timeout period gets over, the next request will go to that service again, and if that's up, you basically start receiving data from that service, or otherwise your circuit will kind of trip again. So that's the circuit breaker pattern that you would use. Then you also need to have a security at each API layer, right? So you could use a security schema like OAuth2 and JSON Web Token to propagate the user authentication. So we'll take a break here, and we'll try to see if we'll